All right, we're going to work with a model here. This is Amanda. And when you start working with a model, it's really important that you get a few things straight before you ever start shooting. I think just spending 2 minutes talking to the model before you begin a shoot can really give big rewards in the long term. So usually what I explain to a model as we begin is that the photographer can't spend the entire time giving posing directions. If I spend the entire time giving posing directions, I can't focus on the photography, and that's going to take away from the pictures. So what I'll do is I'll give a couple directions to you. I'll tell you a basic place to stand, maybe an idea for a pose, and every time you hear the shutter click, we're going to switch the pose up a little bit. Because, I don't need 10 pictures of the same thing. So we'll take one shot here, and even just turning your head one way, looking off away from the camera, turning your shoulders a little bit, any little tiny changes between poses will make a big difference. If all you do is you give a model in one pose, then you move to the next pose, the photographer is going to have to know 300 poses for a single shoot. Working this way is a lot more efficient for you, and it's more fun for the model, frankly, because all I have to do is give a couple concepts to the model, and we get tons of different looks, and I didn't have to do much work for it. So that's a great way to work with models. Even if you're not working with a model, you're doing a senior portrait or a wedding, I explain the same thing. Just give a couple posing directions, and in between, I expect the models to be changing around and doing different things. So Amanda, why don't you come over here? If you put your back maybe to this pillar, and we'll try our first shot here. Yeah, right there. Yeah, if she leans back, she's out of the sun. I like that. Don't worry about your hair falling in your face. I kind of like that. We'll take a look here, and we'll take a shot. I can already see one problem that's going to happen. Okay, it looks all right. I guess that's a little bit dark. I'm going to drop my aperture to f2.8. Shutter speed of 250 and ISO 200. As we look at that, it's a nice picture. You can pull your hair back just a little bit. It looks good, but we have a few problems. Most importantly is that sunlight that's coming, hitting that pillar, and it's really, really hard light on her face. When we talk about hard light, it's important that we remember a few things, if you don't mind. When I'm talking about hard light, I don't mean that the light is too bright or too dark, but on this side of her face, it's dark, and here it's light. What makes the light hard is the gray zone in between the dark and the light. And we can see it switches from shadow to highlight very quickly, and that's because we have a hard light source. So Aaron, our assistant's going to come up, and Aaron's going to just hold this reflector in just to cast perfect shade with the black side of this reflector. You can even come out here to cast as much as possible over her. And we're going to have our only light source now being the flash. I'll put this flash up a little bit. Understanding the height of the flash it makes a big difference in the picture. A lot of times, beginning photographers have the tendency to light from the height of the model. But that's the least flattering light for a lot of models. Especially on Amanda here, where she's very fit, she's skinny, and we don't have to worry so much about the cheeks. We can shoot with the light coming really high down on her, and it's going to create interesting shadows as that light falls off lower on her. Whereas if we shoot this flat, I'll go ahead and move this light in. You'll see that shooting this flat is just not quite as interesting. Aaron, can you get that reflector a little bit lower? We have a highlight perfect. All right, that's pretty flat light. It's okay, I guess, but it's just not as interesting. You can see the difference between this picture, and then I keep everything the same, but this time I'm going to raise this light up and shoot down. She'll do the same pose there. Thank you. And you can see the light is much, much more interesting this time. But we are getting some shadows from where her hair is falling across her face. And I like that hair coming in. So I'm going to move this light right above her so that we can kind of fill in those shadows. And I think that is great, great lighting. By putting it up higher and shooting down, we're adding some interest as the shadows fall off lower on her. And by putting the light to the right side on camera right, we fill in that shadow from where the hair is. So now we'll do just what we talked about. We're going to keep in this same position, and we're just going to let her go freestyle a little bit and change up the pose in a few ways. And I'm going to scoot this light a little bit over this time, since we aren't going to have the light falling in her. We aren't going to have the... we aren't going to have to worry about the hair falling in her face, because she won't be turned on that same angle. We have a highlight on her face, Aaron. Perfect. That looks great. Very nice. I'm putting my... I'm focusing right on her eye. A lot of photographers talk about where to put the focus point when you're shooting. And there's a temptation to put it on the cheek or the nose. But I'm shooting with f2.8 so that we get very shallow depth of field here. And if I do that and put the focus even on her cheek instead of her eye, it's going to put her eye just slightly out of focus. And that can make quite a difference in a photo like this. We're going to scoot in this time, and I'll show you that difference by putting the focus point in the wrong spot. All right, we're just shooting pretty tight here. All right, if I put the focus point back, that's what we look like. And then if I focus on the eye, that's what we look like. Is it a big, big difference? No, it's not. But it's enough of a difference to really make those eyes pop, especially when we're shooting in close. So always make sure that your focus point is precisely on the eye. And we're just going to use that spot focus, and I'm moving it around constantly to put it right on the eye.